Hello, my friends, and welcome to the my YouTube channel, Curtis Jones Writing. Uh, if you like what I do, please subscribe and hit the bell. You'll be notified every time I post a new video. This is chapter 11, the last chapter in the Dad's Old Truck 1 book. And after I finish this, I will begin Dad's Old Truck 2. And share with your friends if you like it and think they will like it. These little stories are clean, nothing I wouldn't tell at church or in mixed company, and I think your children will enjoy them. Let them watch and subscribe. I will make sure there's nothing uh, untoward will be presented here. Chapter 11 is entitled "The Hunter in Me," and this also happened in the 50s. Beginning. This was the year I received my first gun for Christmas. It was the year that I should have done some growing up, but I have always been a little slow and to want to grow up. That may never change because I am in my 60s when I wrote this and still have a kid's heart and a kid's attitude about many things. My lovely wife would have testified to that fact. That year was a wonderful year for me. I had just become interested in the fact that little girls are wonderful little creatures. You might say that I had become aware of young women. I attended a small school, country school, that had only one room, and I was seated on the side with the smaller kids because I was, and my teacher was Miss Box. Miss Box was a very nice lady. Her husband owned a grocery store in town. We shopped at the Box grocery store. It was it may have been the only grocery store in the small town of Tahlequah at that time. I don't remember. Mrs. Box was a good teacher and a friend to most of the kids at school. The place we lived was up a holler called Steely Holler, and we had a little creek right in front of our house called Steely Creek. The creek was rolling when it had rained, and it was dry all summer. We walked almost 3 miles to school, a half mile on our country road, and 1.5 miles on the main dirt road that traversed from one highway to another. The school was a 1 mile to the north on this highway. And we walked to school every day. It started at 8:30 every morning and got out at 3 p.m. every afternoon. We did not think we were being mistreated because we walked to school. Everybody walked to school except the teacher. We would take shortcuts from our house to my grandfather's house by following the creek or following the creek bed and save us about a quarter mile each way. We also could cut through the woods about a quarter mile back from the other highway and cut around a half mile off our journey if the weather was nice or if it was not getting dark. We didn't want to be there in the dark. Sometimes it would be nearly dark by the time we got home. My sister Mary got lost on the second shortcut one day when she wanted to take it. and the rest of us did not want to take it, but we found her anyway. We came out from the second shortcut by the house that the triplets lived in. The triplets went to school with us, and they were my age. I thought that they were the loveliest little girls I'd ever seen. Their names were Julie, Joyce, and Janice. Janice was the one I thought was my cup of tea. I never said anything to her, and we only talked of things in general. I don't think she even noticed me otherwise, but she generated a great awakening in me, although she never knew of it. I was a little shy because I had been subdued by my sisters who outnumbered me considerably. At the end of school, Miss Box would have a big picnic on the school grounds for all the students and their families. We would use large slabs of pasteboard to slide down the embankment by the highway. I don't know where the pasteboard came from. It was just there. It was about a 50-foot slide. I don't know. I don't remember any playground equipment at this school grounds. Miss Box would let us slide down, or wouldn't let us slide down unless our parents were there. You could really get to going fast on that hill. It dumped onto the school grounds at the corner of the highway. When Christmas came that year, I received a 22 caliber rifle for one of my presents. I also got a box of 22 cartridges to use with the rifle. I also got other presents, but I only remember the rifle. The rifle had to be loaded each time you wanted to fire the gun. It held only one cartridge at a time. When you put the cartridge into the gun, it would automatically cock the gun and it would be ready to fire. The rifle had a safety switch that could be set after you had loaded the gun. Or you could uncock the rifle by holding the hammer back and pulling the trigger and slowly allowing the hammer to return to the uncocked position. Then, to fire the gun, all that was required was to pull back on the hammer into the firing position. To fire, the safety had to be removed as well. This Christmas morning, the weather had generated a wonderful snowfall. We had about 4 inches of new snow, and that meant that I would be able to track animals by what they left in the snow, their footprints. However, pardon me, 4 inches does not fully cover everything, but with 4 inches, I could tell which way they had gone. This was a windfall for a new hunter. I was sure of my success on my first hunt. Dad told me to bring dinner home when I had convinced him to let me go hunting that morning. Dad had always taught all of us about gun safety from the time we could walk. I was prepared for my first hunt long before I took my first hunt. Mom made me dress warmly because it was cold outside. The snow had stopped and was still fresh enough to track. I started on this hunt by walking into the field that was just north of the house. Wood surrounded it, and that would be the best place to find dinner. I was looking for rabbits. There were always lots of rabbits around, and they were good eating. Dad suggested I try to get 2 rabbits so that there would be enough for the whole family. When I got to the field, There were almost no tracks to be seen. I began slowly walking around the field and watching for tracks. No rabbit tracks, but lots of deer tracks. I continued to walk until at last a set of rabbit tracks going into the field. Oh, what luck! I would soon have my first kill and dinner, for the dinner would be half won. I took a long, quiet breath as I started my stalk. One slow step at a time would I take, so as not to cause the rabbits to flee. The rabbit had walked in a zigzag pattern, and I was sure that he could be right next to me at any moment. The rabbits were a light brown color this time of year. I knew that with the little brown patches of dirt showing through the snow, it might be hard to see him. I persisted and continued my stalk around the barren field. The snow was thicker in the middle of the field, and the tracks seemed to migrate that way. I slowed my pace even slower. My breath became slow and steady. I listened to the snow make crushing sounds with every step I took. I thought this would never do. I began to try to step more lightly. I wanted to muffle the sound I was making with every step. Oh, wait, I see something. I slowly cocked the rifle and turned the safety off. I took aim at what I was sure was a rabbit. I moved even ever so slowly toward it with the rifle pointed to him and the sights lined up on him. It must have taken me 3 minutes to walk those 10 yards to the rabbit. When I got there, it was a bob white quail on a little nest. He was hunkered down for the warmth of the nest. He fluttered up and away he went with a startling sound of fury as his little wings beat the air. I was just as startled as he was by the sound and the sight of what had happened. I would continue the hunt, for the tracks led still further into the field. This time I would compose myself and calm my racing heart. I turned the safety back on and resumed my hunt. I told myself that I had seen Dad and Uncle John hunt many times, and I would also make myself into a hunter. Now onward I moved, following the tracks as they weaved in and out of the snow and the dirt patches. I was not going to lose the tracks, and I would be successful if I did not give up, I told myself. I caught a little moment movement out of the corner of my eye. This time I could see well enough to know that it was indeed a rabbit. He was not the rabbit that I had been tracking, but a good hunter takes advantage of the situation. He was only about 10 foot away, and I slowly turned toward him, and I was bringing the rifle to bear on him. I was beginning to move the sight toward the rabbit when he bolted and was in full stride before I could trigger him. I thought, I hope this is not the rabbit I've been tracking for an hour, half an hour. Onward I moved, following the tracks. This time I determined not to be distracted by any other animal except the one I was tracking. I gained a sense of confidence. I gained a sense of confidence as I thought about how close I had come to that rabbit. He had sat quietly waiting for me, and if I played my paid attention to what was around me, I would surely make a kill. I realized that I had learned to move as quietly as the rabbits could move. I was not disturbing the snow, and the dirt area were damp enough to be silent when disturbed as I stepped onto them. There in the dirt area was just ahead of me was a little rabbit. He was facing away from me, and I was able to get very close to him. I was just over his shoulder, and he began to move. Had he heard me? Was he preparing to bolt? I got very still and did not move a single muscle. The rabbit was now facing me, and I had the rifle pointed at his head. All that would be required to make a kill was to release the safety. My thumb was already on it, then depress the trigger, and I would be a successful hunter. Surely I could do this simple thing. I lined my sights up in the center of the rabbit's forehead. The shot would be quick and painless. I was only about 2 foot from him with the end of the barrel of the gun. I thought about how much fun I'd had tracking an animal and finding him in my sights. I was a hunter now. I thought about the bird that had startled me and the rabbit that had run away. I thought how good I would be if I kept learning how to hunt. I might be bringing home a deer someday. I wanted to get back to the business at hand. I looked down the side of the rifle and not through the sights. I could see the rabbit more clearly now. The rabbit had an expression on that little face that is with me to this day. I don't know how he did that, but I can now still see his eyes looking up from that little patch of dirt. They were as big as I had seen on any animal. They were bigger than my little sister's eyes. They said, "Are you going to kill me?" His ears were laying flat on his back. He was breathing very fast, and he seemed to be frozen in place. My heart took a pause. It had melted a little bit, and my trigger finger loosened off the trigger. I got a little tear in my eye as I looked down on that rabbit that day and considered what I was contemplating. I know that the hunter in me was not like the hunter in Dad or Uncle John or even my cousin Joe. My cousin Joe had killed in the hunt before as well. I had heard him say so. But I was now put to the test. Could I measure up, or would I have to make excuses when the time came to go hunting? My heart melted before that rabbit that day, just like a snow cone in August, and my future was set. I would not be a hunter because I could not kill when faced with a choice. I could not look an animal in the eye and take its life. The rabbit, still looking at me as I put the safety back on, and I began to lower the rifle. The rabbit still sat there for a moment without moving. I slowly squatted down to be closer to the rabbit and to continue to look into its eyes. He sat still for another minute. I'm sure that his little heart was beating as fast as mine was. He slowly moved to the side, and as soon as he was pointed in the other direction, he ran like the wind, and I never saw him again. I walked back to the house and let the tailgate down on Dad's old truck, and I sat there for a long time, thinking about my first hunt. I knew I would not tell Dad about my tender heart, and the girls would surely make fun of me. I had to let on like the animals were not out in the field this time. I went back into the house empty handed. Dad said that the first time he had went hunting, he didn't get anything either. I did not want to disappoint him by telling him I was not cut out to be a hunter. I knew that I would never be a hunter like him, but I was proud of the rifle I had been given for Christmas. All the boys my age had a 22 rifle, and most hunted for rabbits and squirrels. I was a good shot because Dad had taught all of his kids how to shoot rifles because we lived in the country. I still didn't like to hunt, or I still don't like to hunt, and I have been forced to do so from time to time out of necessity, but I don't like it. When I was trying to be raised, when I was trying to raise a family of my own, and money was tight, it got tight every now and again. At those times, I would break down and hunt. I don't think I fooled anybody because of my success rate. I did not bring home game often. I think Dad knew this when I was a kid, and I know that my wife knows because I would go to the woods for several hours and come back home empty handed. I did and still do like to sit in the woods where you can watch the wildlife play around, and you are, if you are quiet enough, these are still places, there are still places in the wild where little boys get their first gun and go on their first hunting trip alone. It seems to be a rite of passage, and I am sure I was not the first little boy who would or could not kill, but it sure felt like it when I had to face Dad after the hunt. I rarely went hunting throughout my life, and when I did, I usually did not bring home meat. I might find berries or mushrooms or wild onions, but almost never meat. I love the quiet and the peace when you sit in the woods alone and listen to the sounds of Mother Nature. I simply cannot kill with ease. I think beef tastes better anyway. Thank you for joining me and being here with this story.